Let's get started with our first news. Colby Covington tells Leon Edwards to retire, says Sean Brady is easy. At UFC London, Sean Brady defeated Leon Edwards via guillotine choke in the 4th round. Colby Covington wasted no time reacting to the fight, making it clear that he believes Leon should retire. Covington also didn't hold back on his thoughts about Sean Brady, calling him an easy matchup. Speaking to Submission Radio, Colby had a lot to say. I kinda thought that after I fought Leon, the motivation wasn't there anymore. I mean, I could tell in the fight, like, I broke my foot immediately and he did nothing. He didn't try and come after me. He just, tried to point Coast to a decision. So I could tell after that fight, he just wasn't hungry anymore. He's made too much money. I made him too much money at that press conference. So yeah, I just don't think he's motivated anymore, and he should hang them up. Covington believes Leon's hunger is gone, and the fight against Brady just proved it. He doubled down on his criticism, saying Edwards has made his money, lost his edge, and is just showing up for the sake of it rather than fighting with the same fire he once had. According to Covington, if a fighter isn't pushing forward and looking to dominate, they're already done. Then, shifting his focus to Sean Brady, Colby didn't mince words. He's still not a draw. He still doesn't draw flies so I want to do good business for the company. Whatever the biggest and best fights that the company wants, that's what I'm on board with. If he's what's on board, fine. If it's a good matchup, he's not going to take me down and submit me. It's going to be a striking fight. And as we saw in the fight with Belal Muhammad, we found out that kid has a glass jaw. So the fact that you got knocked out by Belal, that kind of shows the company everything that you're made of. You're not anything special. So if the company wants me to end the hype, no problem. It's a pretty easy matchup. Covington made it clear. He doesn't see Brady as a real threat. He believes Brady has holes in his game, especially in striking, and if the UFC wants him to shut down the hype, he's more than ready. The way Colby sees it, Brady's weakness was exposed against Belal Muhammad, and if he steps in the cage with him, it'll be an even worse night for Brady. Let's move on to the second news. Kamaru Usman on who he wants to fight next. Usman has named 3 potential opponents he'd like to face in his next fight. The former welterweight champion hasn't competed since October 2023, when he lost a majority decision to Khamzat Chimaev. Despite that setback, Usman remains ranked number 4 in the welterweight division and is laser focused on fighting whoever will get him back to a title shot. He knows he's still in the mix, but the right fight is crucial to securing his path back to the top. I feel like this is the perfect matchup. But if Kamaru Usman has to say, I want somebody before I fight for the belt, who is it? Honestly, what makes sense would be, if I had to pick the order, I would say Brady, Shavkat, Buckley. That's what makes sense, because Brady, winner of Brady and I, we fight for the title next. Usman believes the path to the title should be clear. If he takes on Sean Brady and wins, there's no question he deserves a shot at the belt. He pointed out that Brady just took out a former champion, which makes him a solid contender. But to truly earn a title fight, he would have to beat another former champ, Kamaru Usman himself. And then you fight another former champion. And if you're able, which he's not going to be, but if he's able to get through me, it's hard to deny him that he shouldn't fight for the title. Who else in the division has a resume like that? No one. If Brady's able to do that, Sean, Usman clearly doesn't believe Brady can beat him, but he acknowledges that if Brady somehow pulled off the upset, he'd have no choice but to admit that Brady deserves a title shot. However, Usman doesn't see that happening. He's confident in his skills, his experience, and his ability to shut down anyone in the welterweight division. The former champion also mentioned Shavkat Rakhmonov and Joaquin Buckley as possible opponents, both of whom are rising stars in the division. Usman sees them as tough, exciting fights, but his ultimate goal is the belt. He's not here to take unnecessary risks. He wants the quickest route back to championship gold. Usman has always been known for his relentless pressure and elite wrestling, and he's ready to remind everyone why he was once the king of the division. If the UFC sets him up with the right fight, there's no doubt he'll be coming for that title shot sooner than later. Let's move on to another news. Aspinall versus Jones, promising update. London this past weekend hosted the UFC's latest Fight Night event, and while the fights themselves were electrifying, there was an even bigger story brewing behind the scenes. The reigning interim heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall was in attendance as a guest fighter, but more importantly, he had a crucial meeting with UFC brass to discuss his immediate future. And from the way he tells it, things are looking better than ever for a potential showdown with Jon Jones. Speaking to Ariel Helwani on Monday, Aspinall provided a promising update on the negotiations surrounding the highly anticipated fight. His energy was through the roof, and he seemed more optimistic than ever about finally stepping into the octagon against Bones later this year. We had a fantastic meeting. Everything went amazing. I understand my position now. I understand what the company's doing now. You got to stay tuned, my friend. There's some big news coming. That's right, big news is on the horizon. Aspinall's confidence suggests that talks are progressing in the right direction, which could mean that we're closer than ever to seeing this dream fight become a reality. Helwani, always looking for confirmation, pressed him further, asking if it's fair to say things are moving towards a fight with Jones. Aspinall didn't hesitate. I think that's fair to say. That's definitely fair to say. I'm feeling like we're in a good spot right now. For months, the heavyweight division has been in limbo, with Jon Jones recovering from injury and the title picture uncertain. But Aspinall has made it clear he is not waiting around forever. Either he fights Jones next, or he fights for the undisputed heavyweight title against whoever is available. And according to him, the UFC has received that message loud and clear. That is correct, yeah, the UFC knows where I stand with that. But is he truly confident that his next fight will be against Jon Jones? That's the million-dollar question. Aspinall, choosing his words carefully, gave a measured but telling response. You'll have to stay tuned, my friend. That's all I can tell you. Helwani, never one to back down, pressed again. I'm not asking if it's going to happen, I'm just asking if you're confident. I'm confident, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I can't really talk about, to be honest with you. I was prying at you, but you also like to pry. Aspinall laughed, showing he knows the game. One thing is for sure, Aspinall is in a great position and the UFC is listening. Whether it's Jon Jones or someone else, the interim champ's next fight is going to be massive. Moving on to another news, Kevin Holland wants a rematch against Stephen Thompson. At UFC London, Kevin Holland put on a solid performance, securing a unanimous decision victory over Gunnar Nelson. It was a well-earned win that kept his momentum going in the welterweight division, but now the always entertaining Holland is looking ahead to what's next, and he has a very specific name in mind, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Holland recently appeared on the Believe You Me podcast, where he discussed his future plans. During the conversation, he made it clear that he's interested in running it back with Wonderboy. The two first clashed in December 2022 in what turned out to be a striking masterclass from Thompson. That fight ended in the 4th round via TKO due to a corner stoppage after Holland suffered multiple fractures in his hand. Despite the tough loss, Holland seems eager to step back in the octagon and do it all over again. I don't think there's anybody at 170 pounds right now that would increase my paycheck. You know what I mean? I get paid pretty freaking hefty. A lot of people don't know that, but I get paid pretty hefty. One of the hosts responded enthusiastically, acknowledging Holland's entertaining fighting style and his ability to bring excitement every time he steps into the octagon. As you should, dude. When you step in and you fight the way you do every single time. I mean, good for you, man. Holland, always humble but confident, responded with gratitude. Thank you, brother. Thank you. But despite the paychecks and his continued success, Holland's main focus seems to be on having fun inside the cage. And what better way to do that than a rematch with a guy like Stephen Thompson? But you know, I'd love to go in there and do it with good old freaking Stephen Wonderboy Thompson again, just cause it was so fun the first time. I mean, I broke my hand and got my ass whooped at the end, but I'd love to do that again, just to do it again. For Holland, it's not just about revenge, it's about the thrill of the fight. He clearly enjoyed the striking battle he had with Thompson, and despite the injury that ended their first meeting, he seems to have nothing but respect for Wonderboy. The question now is, will the UFC book this rematch? Both fighters are fan favorites, and their styles complement each other perfectly. The first fight delivered an action-packed striking war, and a rematch would undoubtedly bring fireworks once again. With Holland openly calling for it, it's now up to the UFC and Wonderboy to decide if they want to run it back. Michael Chandler accuses Ilia Topuria of lying about his weight. Michael Chandler is calling out Ilia Topuria, claiming that the UFC featherweight champion isn't being truthful about his weight ahead of a potential move to lightweight. Topuria has stated that he walks around at 190 pounds outside of training camp, but Chandler isn't buying it. In a recent interview, Chandler said, "I think he's lying about the weight a little bit." I don't think he weighs 190 pounds. I've seen the man. I've stood next to the man. We've had conversations. As a former lightweight title challenger, Chandler has competed against fighters of various builds and believes Pereira doesn't have the frame of someone walking around at 190 pounds. Pereira, fresh off his dominant title victory over Alexander Volkanovski, has expressed interest in eventually moving up to 155 pounds. Many believe he has the skills to be a threat in the division, but if Chandler's claim is true, he might not be as physically imposing as he suggests. Fighter walk-around weights are often debated in MMA. Some exaggerate to hype up potential fights, while others downplay it for strategic reasons. Chandler, however, seems convinced that Pereira is inflating his numbers. If Pereira does move up, he'll be competing against naturally bigger fighters like Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, and Islam Makhachev, who often rehydrate to over 170 pounds after weigh-ins. If he's not as big as he claims, the transition could be much tougher than expected, with Chandler still waiting for his long-anticipated fight against Conor McGregor. A future bout with Pereira could be an exciting possibility. Whether Chandler's accusation is true or just mind games, it certainly adds intrigue to Pereira's potential move to lightweight. Alex Pereira fought Magomed Ankalaev while battling serious health issues. Alex Pereira's UFC 313 showdown against Magomed Ankalaev was already considered one of the toughest challenges of his career. However, it has now been revealed that Pereira wasn't just fighting Ankalaev that night, he was also dealing with some serious health issues. According to UFC commentator Joe Rogan, Pereira went into the fight with a broken hand and was also suffering from norovirus, a highly contagious illness that can cause severe vomiting, diarrhea, and fatigue. During a recent podcast episode, Rogan discussed Pereira's condition, saying, "They say he fought with a broken hand and norovirus against Ankalaev. This guy's a warrior." Competing at the highest level in the UFC is already a massive challenge, but doing so while battling both a serious illness and a broken hand is nearly unthinkable. Norovirus alone can drain an athlete's energy, severely impacting their cardio and ability to recover between rounds. A broken hand, on the other hand, would make it nearly impossible to strike with full power, which is one of Pereira's biggest weapons inside the octagon. Despite these setbacks, Pereira still managed to put up a tough fight against Ankalaev, showing why he remains one of the most dangerous competitors in the light heavyweight division. While he ultimately came up short in the bout, his ability to compete under such extreme conditions has only increased the respect fans and fellow fighters have for him. The big question now is, will there be a rematch? UFC President Dana White has already hinted at the possibility of running it back between Pereira and Ankalaev. Given how compromised Pereira was in their first fight, a second matchup with both fighters at full health could tell a very different story. Many believe that a fully recovered Pereira would be an even greater threat to Ankalaev, given his knockout power and elite striking skills. For now, Pereira will need time to heal from his injuries and fully recover from the brutal battle at UFC 313. But if a rematch is booked, fans can expect an even more intense showdown between these two top contenders. With both fighters hungry to prove themselves, a second fight could have major implications for the light heavyweight title picture. Whether it's a rematch with Ankalaev or a different challenge, one thing is certain: Alex Pereira is far from done, and he remains one of the most feared fighters in the division.